I like Webb a lot.
And if you are an Hall of Fame voter, what you do?
I would vote for Richmond Webb, but I'd also vote for George Kuntz. I know them both, seen them both.
And this is it. This is the part two of the episode with Upton Bell. We first talk about history, and now we still continue to talk about the history, but more about the evolution of the game, the NFL, if it stands for as your father, Bert Bell, thought these sports will evaluate, and also we will talk about the forgotten, the seniors player who still have not met the Hall of Fame, and the late modern era player because they deserve awareness to not fall into the abyss. So, Upton, are you ready for that second part?
Kick it off.
Yes,
I
sir.
still believe in the kickoff return, so kick it off.
And to the audience, it's good to start with a French word. I forgot that in the first part. So, bonjour, Upton.
Bonjour, tristesse.
Thank you, sir. Hey, we start kickoff. So now we're going through the evolution of the game. How do you see the NFL today compare to your father's vision? It's a change.
Well, it changed, but I think his vision was he actually in those days he was a human computer. He made up the schedule himself. And I remember walking in, I said later in life, I'm watching Bobby Fischer or Kasparov or any of the great chess masters because he would have this big. There were 12 teams originally, and he would have this big board there with every team's name at the top, and then different dates because they had to deal with stadiums in those days that were shared with baseball, and he would have these checkers, and he would have names of teams on them, and I would walk in and watch him move these chess pieces around all over the place and say, "What is this?" And what he did was he was able to schedule it so the weak teams played the weak teams early in the schedule, and the strong teams played the strong teams. And so, therefore, theoretically, by the midway point, everybody was in the race. And this was where he came up with the most famous saying, which was on any given Sunday, any team can beat any other team. There are books written about it. Um, my brother finally, my older brother finally went out and had it legalized. So, all these different businesses, everybody, I still hear it now. Every Sunday, somebody says on any given Sunday or any given whatever it is. So he made up the schedule to make sure that that was the way it was because the league had to survive. So when you get to the midway of the season, everybody's still in the race, then you don't feel like anybody's out of it. And remember, originally it was a 12-team league, but that whole idea of making up that schedule and equalizing things, and he understood the strengths and weaknesses of each team because remember, he at one time was a coach and a player. This is where we come back to his ability to understand the game. So I think on that part, he understood. He also, the second part of it was he understood the nature of television and how to use it for crucial games. Now, another thing he did was he was the founder, not ABC. He was the founder of the first nighttime television of games. It was called Saturday Night Football. And it was on in the 50s and it was a big hit every Saturday night. Now, it was in black and white then, but he even designed a football that was a white football with a black stripe. That's how how inventive he was, and it was the Dumont Network. And basically, those games were tremendous. They had great ratings, but college football came to him and said, you're hurting our game. We're playing on Saturday afternoons or some Saturday night games. Would you consider canceling it? And he eventually did. Today they wouldn't. Today they tell you go screw yourself. But that's how he saw how to grow the game.
Yeah, and do you feel the Hall of Fame captured the full scope of the league history?
Would you say?
Do you feel the Hall of Fame captures the full scope of the league's history?
I think it does. I think especially the early people do. I think certain things have gotten a little out of hand now, because I think a lot of the new voters, but I think yes, I think that they've done. In fact, I was a presenter years ago in 1971 for one of my father's players, Bill Hewitt, who was one of the last players to play without a helmet and was inducted in the Hall of Fame. And I was his presenter. And ironically, that's the night that I ended up sitting right near President Nixon. And he and I were having this big discussion about football because he really did know football. And we were discussing that and also the idea of a trade that I was thinking about making. He had forgotten, by the way, this is another Bert Bell story. I think it was 56. The Lions are playing Cleveland in Detroit, and it had been snowing all week long. And there'd been a lot of pressure on my father to lift the blackout and put the game on television. And my father had said to the media, I'm not going to screw the fans that stood out in line for hours, for days to get those tickets. So what happened was the governor of Minnesota, Soapy Williams, actually called then Vice President Nixon to come to town and try to put pressure on my father. And so the night before the game, they had dinner together, and my father told Nixon directly, I'm not going to screw the fans. He actually backed Nixon down. And I thought then years later in 19, listen, he wasn't afraid of anybody.
Oh,
Um, and years later, I thought to myself, I'm standing, talking to Nixon at the Pro Football Hall of Fame in a dinner the night before. And does Nixon remember Bert Bell telling him to go screw himself? But it never actually came up. But that's another story of an example of how to grow the game. But there was a Bert Bell rule in those days to protect the home gate that if the game wasn't a sellout within 48 hours, it couldn't be on TV. It finally, Congress finally got it passed when Nixon got in the White House and became friendly with George Allen, the Colt, or the coach of the Washington Redskins, that they finally got rid of that. And now every game's on, but practically every game is sold out.
oh. And are there, we were talking about the Hall of Fame, and are there player or figures from the past you feel history has forgotten?
Oh, there's so many. There's such a backlog because
Yeah.
with Clark Judge, who you had on a couple of weeks ago, who's one of the Hall of Fame voters and terrific guy, is basically we've gotten together a group of historians and myself and Clark to try and present to the NFL Hall of Fame uh, this list of people who we think are forgotten. And there are plenty of them. And the biggest problem is, and look, uh, today, everything moves at such a fast pace everywhere in the world. I mean, what's news 10 minutes ago is nothing now. 10 minutes later is that basically many of the new voters, they don't watch a lot of film. They don't give a damn. And I understand that. And they're into analytics. And you know what? I say there are four things in life: death, taxes, and analytics.
Yeah.
It it's carried to a ridiculous degree. You can't, I can tell if you had sat me down and said, is this person a good announcer? Is that person good now? Is he or she a good interviewer? I could tell you, I don't need to know their background. I can tell you with a player in watching him because my job at the Colts was director of player personnel. I did all the scouting. I could watch a player because I learned at that Bears camp and learned growing up. For instance, uh, I don't watch the way a quarterback throws. I watch his feet. How quick does he set up? Even now in the shotgun, how does he move his feet? What does he do with his movements? How does he avoid the rush? Same way with like an offensive lineman. The first step on an offensive lineman is he able to backpedal quick enough? I look at the feet more than anything else. I look at the arm. I look at the different cuts that players make and the receivers and stuff like that. You don't have quick feet, you better be 500 pounds. So I've been able to develop my thoughts about that the same way I look at the Hall of Fame. Uh, I'll give you an example. Maxie Baughan, been there forever. I saw him break in as a rookie, and he was never really a rookie with the 1960 Eagles that upset the Green Bay Packers and won the NFL championship. I said from the very first day that I watched that guy all the way through to the end of where he became a player coach, that guy's one of the smartest I've ever seen. He has great movement. He has intelligence. He knows when to get to the ball. He sees that, when you're passing and stuff like that. He's been there for years and never gotten through. There are many
Yeah.
players, but part of it is, and I also think that there are people that are being put in. And listen, there are days when people get in that maybe don't belong in, but I see more and more of players that I think are very good, but are not, to me, that high standard. Another example is that there are many players from the 40s that were really, really very good. But who's gonna watch film? And if there is no film, who's around? When I'm gone, that will be the end. There'll be nobody left that remembers the game all the way back then. My memory's damn good. So I know what I see and what I talk about, even if you think I'm wrong. But I've seen it from a kid in the 30s to today. And so then what happens to the voters that did know and see those players of the 40s or 50s or 60s, whatever is left? And that's the whole idea with Clark and this group, to put together a list of players, keep it brief, because the attention span at the HOF is like 20 seconds. But to be able to do that and look at them and realize that there's so many from the 40s and 50s that are, just totally ignored. So how do you deal with that?
That's a true question because the backlog, his other name is the abyss. So that's kind of a name. Uh, I, I've been humbly just in my town, France, Paris. French doesn't know football. I know that. No, no, I don't want to take that the American sports to you guys, but I have been thinking about this. For the abyss, you have to be creative to fix it. I don't have the answer because there will be so many options, but there is still a solution to your problem. That so the Hall of Fame has to find the problem. But
But you have to be willing to have an open mind.
yeah, so
Yeah,
history.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah
I,
sorry.
I, no, I know all the great French authors. I read their books. I, so, I mean, I want to know who these people are. I want
For
to
sure.
know. I want to know who the. I can tell you this: French history. Edith Piaf. Who was she in love with? Who died in a plane accident? Marcel Cerdan, great boxer,
Yeah.
who was coming to America to fight. I know your history because I'm interested in your history. I'm just asking the voters at the Hall of Fame. I know they're a lot younger and probably maybe don't care, whatever it is. Go do the research. Find out what the history is about. Who are these people? Why would they Why should they be qualified? Is there some film out there that I can watch of them? There is film out there. I know it's a different thing, but I'll give you an example. If you went online and went on YouTube and said I want to see UCLA with Jackie Robinson and Kenny Washington. Washington was the first one to break the color line in the NFL in the late 40s. If you watch that backfield, it might be one of the greatest backfields ever. Jackie Robinson was considered a better football player prospect in the NFL than a baseball player. He's in the Hall of Fame, first person to break the baseball color line. But Kenny Washington broke it the year before. So, but you have to be willing to look at that UCLA team of the 30s. I'll tell you this: a lot of people don't know one of the best players in the Chicago All-Star game was Jackie Robinson. How many people know that? How many people even watched him play football? You
Not so
have,
many, but
Daniel, you have to be willing to do the work. If you're going to be a voter at the Hall of Fame, you have to be willing to do the work. You can't dismiss people because they played in the 50s. The
I mean,
game was totally different.
you're absolutely right, Upton. I mean, it's if you want to give credit to Hall of Fame, you have to do that. If you don't do that, you don't give credit to the Hall of Fame. At the end, it's just a politic vote, and people don't buy that, by the way. So if you want to expand that into a worldwide sport, you have to take care of history, because that's what create this game. That's what put this game into what is now. So all of them has to be careful about that. And I have been like I was telling you before. I have been thinking about the senior group, but that rookie about that. So it's maybe too big for me. So that's why I'm talking with you. I'm talking with historians. I talk with Clark Judge too, and so many people to understand it step by step. The thing I know, it's the late modern era player I've I've played in the 2000s, so we have tape. We still have something. And to understand the problem of the senior group, you have to take awareness into the late modern era player to understand the emergency of the problem, of the issue. So we are all talking about the first ballot. I understand all the process. It's good. Great player deserve to have the recognition to be a first ballot. But in terms of damage, you don't have any damage to be elected in your second year because you're still elected. So there is no issue about that. But if you are a deserved player, late modern era player, and you fail in the senior group, it is a big damage, much more than not being
Okay.
a first
No,
ballot player.
no.
That's why I have bringing this idea of a last ballot spotlight to give one final chance to recognize those overlooked legends. What do you think about that, Upton?
I like it, but I think the biggest problem is not those legends. I mean, we have so many names that we've discussed, and particularly the historians, is that you've got to get it by the Hall of Fame group, the committee, the Jim Porter and his committee, uh, before you can go to the voters. And I just don't see it. I don't see the will there now. We'll find out because we've put together two groups, going through the 50s and then from like the 60s on in of deserving names and seeing if they will at least take a look at this and begin to do something about it. My fear, I believe in change. I believe in change every day, every minute. If somebody is doing something better uh, than than me, I want to learn. Uh, I find an intransient
Yeah,
there right now about that. Your idea is great, and I think what Clark and we are trying to do is great. But will they accept it? Will they have the open mind to do it? if not, many great players are never going to make it. I mean, they're players dying every day that should be in there. But where is the knowledge? If I were a voter, knowing what I know, I would stand up and say, these are the names, these are the people I've seen. I swear on whatever, these are legitimate players. I've been lucky. I've seen it all the way through to what it is today. And what quicker, faster, stronger, better game, everything. But those people who made it, who in their day were great players. I mean, let's say 20 years from now, you, not me, I won't be around. 20 years from now, you're going to look back and say, geez, what about those people from 2025? You know what they'll say? Oh, that's ancient history.
I'm
Huh,
still
they
I'm
were
still
there.
saying that. I'm
They
still
love
saying that
me.
to the 90s players.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But Upton, the idea of the last ballot spotlight, it's more focused on the modern era because you can have between 3 or 5. I mean, with the new process, it's kind of more complicated, but you still have 3 or 5 players you can be elected, so you can find a room to maybe put someone
Not
who
in,
are in
that,
the
that's
late modern era eligibility.
that's another thing I really disagree with. Why are you shrinking it to 3 to 5? They only put three in this year. This is ridiculous. It
Uh,
should be more.
Put 5 in, that's it every year.
Well, yeah, that's it. But they keep wanting to shrink it. You know why? Because it's less work. That's what happens to different people.
If I can say that, Upton, every years in soccer we elect the 11 great player. So there is no
Right.
problem to have a lot of player because we recognize every position. So at the end, we allowed public to say that there is no downgrade playing any position because they are all aware that position is good. And in football, is not the same thing because you can see kicker. Uh, who cares sometimes about the kicker? I'm trying to kick. Don't get me wrong. I love the kickers, but public, I'm not sure because we don't recognize them. We don't recognize offensive line maybe as we recognize other position or now DBs because of the change of the rules. So by doing that, you discrediting your sport and the position. So at the end, the public just focus in 2 3 position and you have so much many other position in soccer. Okay, the media focus on the forward player because they are scoring goals and that's what you sell on TV. But at the end of the day, they were all the position because we made 11. What are the 11 great player? And I think by just trying to have as it seems that as the less player we have been elected in the Hall of Fame, the better it is. I don't buy that. I mean, the most greatest
Well,
player you have,
well,
the most
well,
player, the most people will love the game.
let me give you an example of why kickers today are more important than ever. But the kickers were important even back in the 50s because when Paul Brown brought the Cleveland Browns into the NFL, a Hall of Famer was the one that won many games for them, Lou the Toe Groza, who was one of the greats, a straight on kicker. And today, with these kickers so good, I mean, they can kick from. I actually think it's exciting now. They can kick from 60 yards in, or even farther back. There will be a day when you'll be able to get to like the 30 or 40 yard line. The guy can kick 70 yards. Adam Vinatieri of the Patriots belongs in the Hall of Fame. He didn't make it this year. He eventually make it. Uh, he won so many big games with so many kicks. I really believe it's called
Football,
football.
yes, sir.
All right. That's the whole idea. So you just have to have an open mind. And I just think as we go along, that the Hall of Fame is becoming more of a closed society. At least that's what it seems to me. And there, there are so many. And now, listen, the job is harder just with the modern players because there are 8 or 10 receivers that could go in any year. They're at the skilled positions, especially today, wide receiver, quarterback, tight end, although most of them are split out now, defensive corners, safeties. The game is so mobile, and these people are so fast and so quick. I mean, you have people. I used to be able to, because I ran track also in college. I would go to the cold camp, and the coaches would want me to run. I could run a 4.5 40. That was considered really fast then. Today, are you kidding me? Guys are running 4.3s, some even 4.2s. They're gone. And that's the speed of the game has totally increased for everybody. Also, the size. You're going to see within 5 years, maybe your average offensive and defensive lineman at least 400 pounds. Whether that's good or not, I don't know. But 400 pounds you're going to see.
Yeah, for sure. And because we are talking about a late modern era player, do you have some uh, personal that you felt deserve more attention before that window closed and they fell on the senior group?
Well, there were a lot of them. I mean, I'd start with Maxie Bond. Would definitely be one of them. George Kuntz, an offensive tackle, played with the Colts and Atlanta. Definitely Tommy Novus. Most of these players, by the way, I've scouted when they were in college, so I really know them well. But they're just some of the many players that deserve to be in. I mean, even if you went back into the 50s, there are players around. Del Schaffner played with the Giants and the Rams. You know, I would say that the NFL ought to take a look at what they did on their anniversary about 4 or 5 years ago when they let a lot of people in, including some coaches I didn't think belonged in. Is that they ought to have declare the 100th anniversary is take a look at that. Use some excuse to say we'll put in, let's say, 20 or 30 players from the past, where you could kind of clear that backlog of guys that are really deserving, not people just on the border or on the edge, but people that you could say, okay.
Okay, sir. And for modern era player?
Well, are you saying names? I mean,
Yeah.
they're all over them.
I mean, no, who was in their final 5, 4, 3 years of eligibility, so we can starting the process to get aware for them to save them to the backlog.
Well, I mean, the problem is right now, whether I name names or not, the real problem, Daniel, is now there's so many of them. There's such a backlog. I mean, I could name you 20 or 30 players, but the problem is they're all bunched together because for every year that you keep putting them aside is every year that they begin to. I'll give you an example. There's a receiver by the name of Stanley Morgan who played for the Patriots back in the 80s, 70s, 80s. He's as good as any receiver today. I don't think he's ever been voted on. And there are other ones that have never been voted on, that never get out of kind of, I mean, there are plenty that never get out of. I'll give you one that's on the list, but he's controversial. Maybe the best offensive lineman I saw, like in the 80s, 90s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and that's Jim Tyrer, the offensive tackle of the Kansas City Chiefs. Why is he not in? He's not in because he probably got CTE. He came home, he killed his wife, and then blew his own brains out. And he probably will never get in because of that. But the NFL, unlike baseball, doesn't have character involved in it. What would you do today if you had to vote on O.J. Simpson, who was one of the 10 best running backs I've ever seen?
Yeah.
What would you do about him? I'm a great believer. I understand the feelings about these players and their backgrounds, but I'm a believer. You're voting on, is the player good enough? Did he have the physical and mental ability to be that person? And Jim Tyrer stands above the crowd. So what do you do? I'll ask you, what do you do about that? If you're a voter, what do you do? Long
About
pause.
the
Like
case of
Jim Tyrer.
sorry.
The case of Jim Tyrer, what do you do?
I mean, there is two problem. First, if you consider the public, you don't consider the public to vote, but you will consider the public of their reaction. So if you took at that angle, you will not elected. So I probably will not vote to not have controversy because the public will say, "Oh, he did that. He did that." You can't vote for him because what he did off the field. But if I just look on what happened during his career and not taking the city problem issue he had, I will elect him. If I put that on context, and he was a great player, and he fit everything about the Hall of Fame. I mean, as a Christian, you have to forgive. Forgiveness is what gives the hope that we can change anything in our life. So I will give the forgiveness and give him what he deserves. It means the gold jacket. But maybe I'm not in the process, so it's maybe easy for me to say it that way. But what you will do, Upton, in that case too.
I would vote him in.
I should say that in that way. Don't give an explanation.
Yeah. Well, because right or wrong, there are extenuating circumstances. I mean, if it was O.J. Simpson, I probably think a little bit differently because
Yes.
I think he murdered his wife and
Uh,
he got away with it. Okay, that's one thing. But then he stole trophies and I mean, but in the case of Tyre, I mean, I think there's most people think that he had CTE, and a lot of players become violent, as we've seen with that. We saw what happened with Junior Seau; he blew his brains out. So he went home and he murdered his wife, and then he murdered himself, he killed himself. Um, but certainly I would have reservations, but I'd probably vote for him, because that is a case of where I don't think he had any control of himself at that time. Webster, the offensive center of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, basically, look at his life. I mean, really horrible. But he'd been hit in the head so many times, and that's when they had the movie Concussion, if you remember, came
yeah.
out at Christmas time years ago, and
Yes.
really exposed the NFL. I mean, Mike Webster is in the Hall of Fame today, and everybody knew that the awful things that he was doing to himself. So I don't know. It's a hard thing, but unlike baseball, again, it does not say. I mean, if it's baseball and it's Pete Rose, there is no way I would ever vote for Pete Rose. I don't care what Trump or what they're now saying, taking a look at everything else with him. No, because it's a detriment to the game, and what people, the minute you have people suspicious about your game because some guy could be fixing it, that's Pete Rose. But in the case of the NFL, um, I'm thinking I'm thinking differently.
Okay, and I have a list of modern era player because offensive line, because I think that there is a lack of metrics for the offensive line, and I have been looking at who had a resume to be in the Hall of Fame. You have a case that for Lemos Brown. I'm not sure I'm saying it
Lambert
right.
Brown, yeah,
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 Lemons Brown, you have Steve Wisniewski, 1 year left before the senior group. You have Mark Stepnowski, if I'm saying the
yes,
right thing,
yep,
and you have
right.
Richmond Webb also. And I think that,
Webb I like a lot. I like Webb a lot.
yeah,
I
but
like Webb, and I like George Coons.
and if you are an Hall of Fame voter, what you do for those players, you let him all fall into the senior, or you have to save, you want to save not just for them, to allow the backlog to not increase even more. What you
Going
doing?
to.
You vote for who?
I would vote for Richmond Webb, and I'd also vote for George Coons. I know them both, seen them both, and they're and but it was I think it was easier years ago to vote, like, for instance, a Larry Little of the Miami Dolphins, than it is today. Because what you have today, and I do understand what they're dealing with, what you have today is so many athletic, really good athletic players. That wasn't true years ago. You could make definitive um, judgments and vote for people because there weren't that many, let's say, great offensive linemen. They weren't as athletic. Uh, Now you could go back and you could say defensive linemen in the 60s, late 50s, 60s, Gino Marchetti, Deacon Jones, um, Jim Marshall. I mean, the Alan Page, who's already in the Hall of Fame. Alan Page was one of the best I've ever seen. You know how much he weighed? He was, might have been, and he played on defensive line. He might have been 235 pounds.
Okay.
Today, today, as good as he was, he couldn't play.
That's sure.
He'd have to be a linebacker, maybe. So it was I think easier to pick. Now you've got to pick. Even in the last 10 or 15 years, they're bigger, they're better, they're quicker, they're stronger, they're better athletes. So your judgment, when you've seen so many good things, it's like I would say, let's say I saw four good movies in a row: Godfather 1, Godfather 2, Lawrence of Arabia, Dr. Zhivago, Bridge Over the River Kwai. Go like, oh wow, they're all good. How do I make a choice?
Yeah,
That's what you're dealing with.
that's what you're dealing with. But sometimes you have to put an argument, and if you can do two separate answer, why you will vote for George Coons and Richmond Webb? What they make them special to you to think that they deserve to be in the Hall of Fame?
Well, as a scout, I would say quick feet, great pass protection, good enough on the run, just an all around. They're both terrific athletes. So I wouldn't have a problem with either one. And I know there are plenty of other ones out there, but that's the problem I keep coming back to. There are more and better players, even from that era, than there were today. I mean, you think of great linebackers, and you could go 50s, 60s: Dick Butkus, uh, Joe Schmidt, um, Maxie Baum belongs in that group. And then later on, the three best linebackers I've ever seen: Ray Lewis of the Ravens, Lawrence Taylor, maybe the best outside ever, and the monster Dick Butkus. But 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 again, how many linebackers were there then that you would say definitely first or second ballot Hall of Fame? Today, it's a completely different element because the game has changed completely. The speed of it, the size of it. You know, mm, I think Patrick Mahomes, for instance, has a chance to be one of the best ever, and
Yeah,
he's won championships. So you have to combine both. The other thing is, there are a lot of players out there that didn't play with championship teams. The less you are with a championship team or a really good team, the less people are going to watch you.
yeah, but
So,
you can't. I mean, I know it's a collective sport, but into an individual recognition, it's kind of complicated because a player, it's not the one who picked the call of the playbook or stuff like that. So you a player
I,
who don't want a Super Bowl, I think that should not affect him in the
well,
run to be in the Hall of Fame.
you could say the same thing about the Academy Awards. It's prejudice. It's it's well, take a look at this player. Unless he's really outstanding, and it's with Jacksonville. How many? Am I going to watch Jacksonville? I'm just saying.
I'm sorry for the answer, but in France we took all the game that they give us. So yeah,
No,
I watch every football team because if
listen.
I don't have
I,
I don't have the luck to see and be there
I,
and go to the stadium, so I watch the game that the TV
I,
broadcasts me.
I, I have two televisions, soon to add three. I get the red zone. I see every game, and the ones I miss, and I can still tell you that basically it's not me, but the typical voter, the voter that they have, how many of them, unless the person is totally outstanding, really stands out, are going to watch Jacksonville or one of these other dog teams. You go watch the Cardinals? Maybe. Larry Fitzgerald will be in the Hall of Fame next year. He played with some good Cardinal teams. He was outstanding. I would vote for him. He's going to be in. I wouldn't watch the Cardinals this year unless I had to. It
it's it's
stinks.
it, it's a
But but
complicated process.
but I want to point out to you what the prejudice is of the voter, the Hall of Fame voter, and trying to convince him or her that basically this is this guy really belongs. There's a lot of convincing. It's like a huge convention. Everybody gets together. Who are you going to vote for? It's no different. You're talking about human beings trying to make judgments and build in all of their prejudices.
Yeah. This is where it
It,
get more complicated, and
yeah,
sadly
nonstop.
we can have the final word on this because it's not in our hands, and I don't judge anything related to the Hall of Fame because I'm not qualified to that. I give my support to the Hall of Fame because I think it's a great idea to recognize forever players who have been great. Process is never perfect, but a process can be improved in a creative way, in a better way. And I think that your story and the story of your father prove it. You have to have the right idea in the right moment, with the right person and the right time, and everything goes better. So we never know how it will improve through the years, but here in Europe I will try to aware about the history of football, and also the don't not go always only in the obvious case like Tom Brady. Of course everyone
Yeah,
is
yeah,
everyone is agree. We just need 1 second to talk about Tom Brady, goat, and that's it. But you have others players in soccer. We not just have Cristiano Ronaldo, Messi, Pele, or Maradona. We have other players, and we are all aware about that because football is give us history every day. Remember us those great players. And football has to do that to preserve their game and to allow to become an even more worldwide sport. Look at the NBA; they still remember Michael Jordan, but other players like John Stockton. You have a lot of people talking about that, and now they are talking about European players like Jokic or Doncic or Tony Parker in France. So just
Here's the
expand your
right.
mind, and it's
Here-
better.
Here's the difference. So soccer, I know all the players. Basketball, you only have five per team. Even baseball to a degree, long balls, pitcher, catcher, hitter. The NFL, even for an educated mind like mine to a degree, I can still tell you. I mean, I've my eyes are popping out because at the snap of the ball, 11 people are in movement against each other. If you watch the other sports, any of them, and particularly basketball, which I think is going to be big on the hockey. Hockey, there's six per side. Basketball, five per side. Baseball, 9 innings. Pitcher, catcher, batter. NFL, harder to educate, no matter who it is. Harder to tell unless you can stop it, run it back and forth, whether it's a film or video, whatever else it is, because you're going to miss something. Some guy's holding, another guy's kicking a guy in the head, another guy's you can't do it. I can watch it and pretty much tell you, but I've got a somewhat educated eye.
Mm.
But to sell it, as you point out, to the European, to the person in France, to the person in Europe, you're selling a game that's got too many. They got 22 players. That can create great confusion. Your biggest chance is on the replay where they can show you this, that, and that. But again, you might miss something else on it. It's a great sport, but it's incomprehensible to somebody that's just trying to learn about it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I was saying that to soccer too was a 22 player also. It's kind of complicated because the ball is
But I
moving.
should,
The
but
ball
it's
is moving and it's kind of complicated to follow all the players. But yeah, I
it
agree
is,
with you.
it is.
Replay on football is the whole thing.
No, it is, but I've got a 65-inch screen, and so I can watch the soccer, and I can really know what's going on because of the way the lines are divided in some ways and movement, but not the NFL. If you
No,
put it on there
yeah.
and do it, and you go like, what the hell is this? It's just another scrum, right?
Yeah, replay gives you everything, of course. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and it's true that you can see everything on a play. That's why coach study film, by the way, because they have to replay all this game to understand what everyone is doing on the play. So it's an educated sport, and it's growing everywhere. So that's why it's great, and let's hope for better future in Europe for this sport because it's kind of complicated. You at 8 years old, you don't find football team as easy as you can find in America. Flag football is still growing, is not growing enough to allow any kids to play that sport. And to be honest, because you don't have a French player, I think that kids prefer to go to basketball and soccer because they don't have that dream that they can touch, then say, oh, you can have a successful career in the NFL. You don't have that example. So I'm not sure how these sports will evaluate in the future in the world,
It,
but you have to
it,
give a dream to the kids, and it
yeah.
has to be with a
Well,
local player.
the best way to sell it is by TV, and I don't predict that you'll have any NFL teams in France or Italy or maybe Germany, maybe England, maybe. But where the game will grow is because of television and trying to continue to instruct people in the game itself. Replay, you name it, video. That I think the NFL will flood the market. But I don't kid myself. I'm not here selling the NFL, but I don't kid myself. Is your games are the games that people take to. I mean, another thing I watch all the time is the French Open, the the golf and the tennis. The tennis is fabulous. Wimbledon,
Yeah.
the French Open, the Italian Open, fabulous stuff. I like it.
Yeah, of course. But the problem with football, it's on Sunday you have great competition with soccer because you have in the same time that you have the NFL, you have the great games. Most of the times, great teams playing. So it's kind of the competition is tough on TV. That's why maybe when you have a local player become famous, that give that extra
Well,
thing,
well,
like
well.
that's happened with mixed martial art. Never be on TV and very loudly in France. And when you had those French fighter coming and become famous, you have now a lot of attention into the sport, and a lot of kids are doing mixed martial art. I'm taking that example just as a reflection of a thing, but I'm not saying I have the answer.
Don't worry about it. The NFL will flood you to death. Sunday, Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night, Thursday night. You'll have it all. Believe me. You'll be sick of it, but you'll have it all. Anyway,
I believe you, man. And sorry and thank you, Upton, for everything that you give us on the show. It was an honor, a privilege. I hope we will have another talk because I think that you keep so much history still to tell. So we have to talk about history and maybe going for the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, and go decades per decades and talk about that because I love history. And I think, as you say, you can move into the future without history. So thank you very much, Upton. Do you have a final word for the French community, a European community, and let's see worldwide community?
I would say this: Au revoir, les enfants.
Au revoir les enfants.
Au revoir. Absolutely. There, because people like you are fascinated by it and are putting it out there and selling it. This is the biggest thing. The spread of the word is in anything, technology, art, politics. It's the spreading of the word. If there isn't somebody, as they say yesterday, to spread the gospel, then it doesn't make any difference what happens. You have to know about it. And as long as people like you are spreading the word, I'll still be living another 5 years.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen. And as you say, and this will be the final word, au revoir les enfants. See you, everybody, and give positive comments to Upton Bell, a legend and a book history of football.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci. Bye.